Welcome back to Stu Structures. We're here to continue our build on the coaling tower, so stay tuned. Okay, so we are going to continue working on the coaling tower with this video 5, or we're up to 6 now, aren't we, in the series? We have the coaling chutes to finish on the outside of the building. I still need to paint and do some work on the sanding facilities I had on the end of the building. Pretty much they're about built except for the platforms. We have a little more work to do there to get the platforms and the ladders and all that kind of stuff in place. So we're just going to jump into this and see how far we can get in this video. I think I have some bad weather through this week, so I can't do a lot in the nursery. So maybe I can get a little more accomplished this week. We'll see how everything goes. Let's jump into this. Now, pretty much, we've got to go back and paint and do some work on the sanding facilities on the other side, but I'm going to get started on these coaling chutes on this side of the building. And you can see there's 3 chutes on this side, and a bunch of pulleys at the top and a system in the center there, which I don't have a good picture of, for raising and lowering the door that allows the coal to come down into the chutes. This gives a little bit better of a, kind of an idea of how that worked, but even when I blow it up, it's not great. I just like to throw this shot in there just for the picture of the Pacific locomotive. But anyway, here's another shot. There's obviously platforms in the early years that went above these coaling chutes as well, which were removed later on, but I'm going to go ahead and model those in as well. I like the detail. So to come back, to begin with, I'm going to figure out where I wanted the chutes in the picture. It shows them right here. So I went ahead and scratched off some of the paint and, just roughed up the area so that I could get good coal or glue adhesion in that area. And I had one coal chute here that, wasn't pre-painted, so I went outside and painted it and didn't realize that I had gloss paint on it. So I'm going to have to come back and put a clear coat of regular dull coat on this when I'm done. But I come back and mount all 3 of those in this place here. Now you can see above there's all these pulley systems that raise and lower the chutes with cables. So, in the original Tichy parts, it had all these parts for this type of a pulley, which looks like the pulleys that were on there. So I'm going to come through and put 6 of these together. And, as I mount these, I want to, the lever that holds these up, I want them on the inside. There's 2 of these per chute. And I want the pulleys to be on the outsides of these on both chutes. So I come through and mount these on the proper sides of those angles, and then take them and put them on this spray, on these tape on this board that I use for painting. And I just go outside and use rattle can. And I don't use anything special. I just, whatever I can find, for $4 or $5 at the store. And this was real cheap a long time ago. And it is a flat black paint, which I should have used on the coaling chutes. And I go outside so I don't asphyxiate myself and, just spray paint black on these pulleys. And once I get them back in, then I'm going to let them set and dry for a while. But I've got to mark where these are on the coaling tower, and they're just about even with the pulleys that were on the sanding facilities on the other side. So I come back and measure the width of them and scratch off paint where they mount, and then I glue those into place as well, and I have all my pulleys in place. Now, as I was working on, some of this, I realized my chutes were just way too low for clearance for the steam locomotives. So I came back and broke the glue free that was holding these in place, and I raised those up and re-glued them into place. Now, having got frustrated with some of those, I decided to move on and start some other stuff. And you can see that, there's these water chutes on either side of the 2 tracks that go into this coaling facility. So I'm going to go ahead and model those. And, previously I had shown an order that I had got in from Tichy that had 2 of these water columns. Now, these were made by the same company in real life that modeled the ones on the coaling tower that I have, but there is a little bit of a difference in some of the detail that are on them. But I'm just going to go ahead and build these kits as they came from Tichy. There's a lot of detail in these, and the more I get into all these parts and the wire and everything that puts these together, the more I realize while I'm working in HO and not N scale, some of the detail on this stuff is really, really small. But it does give a real nice coaling chute when it's all said and done. It just, this is just laying here put together, just without all the detail parts. But basically, these come on two concrete stands, so I take the stands out and I use my knife and scrape off all the seams around the outer edge of them so that they look more like concrete and not molded plastic. The two square holes in the deck there were for grates, so I paint these grates black, and I use a brush so I can get down in all the open squares on these really good. Then I come back and glue those into place. And then, this is basically, except for a little bit of weathering, ready to mount the columns on when I get those all together. Now, the basic column parts come in 4 different pieces, and, I had to scrape the seams where the molds were on these a little bit, but they're basically, even the small detail on this is molded really well. And once I get those glued together, I had to make sure that I glued the flat plate of all these seams on the back in the right order, because there's 3 of these wires that go up the coaling tower and they need to be lined upright. There's this tiny triangle piece that glues into the front on top there that you can barely see between my fingers. And then on that wire I mounted on the back of that, there's this valve here that opens up the water once the fireman gets his pulled over the tender to open the tower. Now, to make that valve work, there's this handle assembly that goes on top, and I had to glue on these 2 quarter round pieces for weights on either side of this. And then you bend the handle up just a slight bit, and then you mount it onto the top of the coaling assembly as you see it here. And basically that's, the main parts of all that in place, except for all this wire linkage. Between that valve down there and that handle assembly, there's this wire here that glues into place, and I got to come back and cut this off at the top, but I'm just super gluing it into place. Then there's 2 more of these long pieces that go up either side of the column, and these bolted at the top and bottoms, and which I guess with the water pressure, these were just an added thing to keep the tower from coming apart with all the pressure of the water pushing against all these joints, because it did swivel and move around so it could be moved over to the tender and back. So, in the meantime, all those joints were just real weak, so this kept those from coming apart. Now, there's a lot of these little wires that I've got to put onto this. These are brass wires, so I'm using CA glue and coming back and just adding all these little extra rods and support. And once I get all that done, I'm just going to come back and take this outside and rattle can some flat black paint on the whole thing. And it's really a nice looking assembly. I like the Tichy products. And then once I mount it onto the concrete basin, we have a nice looking water spout here. And I'm just going to go ahead and I grind up just different things to use for weathering powders. These are just from Grumbacher sticks, I think. But I just use sandpaper and grind them into this tray, and I'm just coming back with a dry brush and just brushing some of that on to add a little rust into the flanges and the swivel parts and the stuff on this to make it look a little more realistic. Now, the other thing, I need to start working on, because eventually once I get to the point that I'm putting all these platforms and ladders on the building, it comes down to this little tiny white building on the left-hand side of this picture here. And the ladders and everything lands on the roof of this building and then goes onto the ground from there. Now, this is a mechanical building. And it has a motor and some pulleys and stuff like that, and then from there some cables go into the building. But you can see here, even once I blow the pictures up that I have of this building, they're not the best looking pictures in the world. I just really don't have a good picture of this building. But what I do have is, and I have several different pages of blueprints for this coaling tower. And these came from the B&O Historical Society. And there's one page that shows definite, descriptions and everything of this particular building. It shows in here where the motor mounted and the pulley systems, shows where the windows are, the doors, and it gives me all the measurements for all of that so that I can build this building. And it's not a real big structure, but it's something that I'm going to have to build. So I just make myself a whole bunch of notes as to the sizes and everything, so I don't have to keep this up on my computer screen while I'm building it. And I went through all my different plastic, and this is a large V-groove siding sheet, but it's nice and thick, and the back side of it's flat, so I'm just going to use this to make the building out of. So I grab my rulers and squares and pencils and all that, and I just draw out the 4 walls as to the sides that they were on that blueprint. The next thing to do, once I come back and cut all those out, and I go ahead and file down the edges and clean up a little bit, because I just score this several times with a knife and then snap the plastic, which doesn't leave a real clean edge. But once I clean up the edges, I come through and mark where all the windows and doors, and where that one small walk-in door is on one end, there's just an opening there where cables went from this building into the tower. And then I put a brand new blade in my X-Acto knife. It's, that's key to cutting anything whenever you're doing new projects. Always have a good clean blade. And I come back and cut all the windows and doors. And I just clean all that up with a file. Now where these corners of the building meet here, what I want to do is cut all of these edges at a 45-degree angle so that all the seams come together in the corners, and once you might have to use a little filler in it here and there, but basically it'll make it look like a solid poured piece of concrete. So there you have this week's segment of the coaling tower. Kind of all over the place on this one. Normally when I do these videos, I am working on several different things at the same time, and I don't always just throw a whole bunch of a little of this and that into a video. This week I just got sidetracked on so many other things besides this coaling tower, but I did show that it's the beginning of several different processes. I was hoping to get the last of those outside coaling chutes done this week, and that just didn't happen. I got a good start on them, but we'll have to finish that this next week and go further into all these other processes. And if you're just wanting to build a very, very small building, this little concrete building that was the mechanical shed for this coaling tower is a good example of doing something like that. Now I do have blueprints for this building, so I do have something to go by, thank God, because I don't have many pictures. And the doors are not standard size doors, and neither the windows on this building. So me figuring that a standard door is 3 foot by 6'8" would not have helped me doing this, because I would have had all my dimensions wrong. And typical windows are not 3 foot 2 by 4'8", and the 4'8" in some of the older buildings was typical, but not a normal window by any means. And as I go through building that little structure, it's something to keep an eye on in the next build video, because if you're just wanting to build a small building, that's a good way to go, and just follow that segment of the structure build to get an idea of how to build something small and simple. It's a good small project to learn on if you're wanting to learn to scratch build. And it's not a very complicated building. I mean, I'm not going to add the motors and the gears and the pulleys and everything for the inside mechanism. This would have connected to the tower with 2 big cables, and I can't understand the small electric motor that was designed in the blueprints on this could not have possibly ran all the belts and everything that were inside that coaling tower. So I'm not sure what part of that this actually ran. It may have just been the conveyor to take the coal up into the tower and not including the sand and, you know, moving the coal around inside and all that. I don't know. But it's too small of a motor to have ran the whole coaling tower, I believe. In any case, you know, we still have a lot to do on this coaling tower. I didn't think it'd take me this many videos to do this. I do like keeping my videos 15, 20 minutes, no more than. You know, that's just kind of videos I like to watch. And, you know, so that it is what it is. And I do have a lot of other things going on in my personal life with the nursery and everything that are taking me away from this. I thought bad weather would have set in before now, and I would have had more time to be more involved with this. And I'm just, you know, unlucky for you guys, but lucky for me in the nursery, because I have so much to do that I'm still able to get out there and do some of that. In any case, you know, jump out there and scratch build something. You know, even if it's something along the lines of this very small building, or, you know, if you stand a big leap of faith, do something like the coaling tower or larger structure. Go back through my videos. I have stuff on iron work and wooden buildings, concrete buildings, brick buildings. You know, in several of those I show you how to make windows and doors if you don't want to buy the windows and doors. I have done that on, you know, quite a few instances, and you'll kind of see some of that later on with this little small building as well. But, you know, it's very self-satisfying to build something for yourself like that. I mean, yes, you can buy a lot of buildings in kit form, but a lot of the buildings that you want for your model railroad that existed on the areas you're modeling don't exist out there in kit form. So to get those exact buildings, you're going to have to scratch build something. And, you know, it's not that hard, and it saves you a whole lot of money on a building, scratch building it, versus buying a kit. Kits are very expensive, especially the nice kits nowadays. So anyway, buy some materials, jump out there and scratch build something and enjoy the hobby. It's winter time, get out your trains, run some trains, you know, just enjoy the hobby. Happy model railroading.